During his police career, he went through the major grind that most police endure. He went through 2 extremely traumatic situations. One was a hostage situation. The other one, the suspect died in his arms after a fight due to drugs and more. It had a profound impact on him. He's here to tell a story on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is brought to you in part by Newsbreak. In particular, our profile on Newsbreak, the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. You can do a Google search. Just search for Law Enforcement Talk Newsbreak, and you'll get access to it. You can download the app for free, the Newsbreak app. Just go to your app store of your choosing and download it. Be sure to look for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast and follow us. You'll get great news, great articles, local news, and much more, all on the Newsbreak app, which is 100% free. So download it today. And be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast and let a friend know. Share the post. Hey, there's an idea. Share it on your social media. And tell everybody about the Newsbreak app, in particular, Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast on the Newsbreak app. Remember, it's free. Contact is from the great state of Arizona. We have retired Marysville, Washington police officer Jeremy Wood on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Marysville is kind of deceiving. A name like Marysville sounds like it's got Ville in it, it's got Mary in it, like nothing bad ever is going to happen there. And, well, that's not the case. Jeremy, thanks so much for being a guest on the show, and thank you for your service. Both very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Now, you retired, and you retired on, I'm looking at my notes, a PTSD retirement, or is it physical retirement and or a combination of both?
So purely PTSD, rated a 4 out of 5 by Washington State Labor and Industries, or Workers' Comp, however you want to say it. 5 would be completely bedridden.
Okay, gotcha. So, see, in the East Coast, in Maryland, for example, Baltimore, the agency I retired from, you don't get a PTSD pension. If you don't have a physical disability to go along with it, you're out of luck. You are really out of luck.
Sad.
And the truth is, and as much as we love, and I'm first in line, to rag on the West Coast politics, California, Oregon, Washington seem to have a lot more on the ball when it comes to PTSD treatment and retirement for first responders than the East Coast does.
Yeah, I would say that's an accurate statement, and that's really unfortunate because we, as first responders, are trained to win the fight, but not the battle. The battle is the long term. That seed of PTSD gets planted inside of you inadvertently. You're not even aware of it, and it just kind of grows on its own by you just showing up for work and seeing the trauma and tragedies that you see. You know, weeds don't need water. They grow on their own. They grow in the cracks. They grow in, on surfaces you wouldn't think. And that's exactly the analogy that I want your listeners to kind of buy into about PTSD.
Now, before
it sneaks up on you.
Yeah, before we go into your story, and a lot of things have transitioned since I was policing in the 1980s. We didn't have critical incident stress debriefing. We didn't have peer support. We didn't have a lot of things that we have nowadays. However, I would just say this. There's 2 lines of contention with me. Number one, I don't think it's the big incidents that really play havoc on people. It's the daily grind, the daily trauma that really wreaks havoc with people's mental health. Number 2, and we've gotten pretty good at dealing with the major incidents. It's the minor things. It's the day in, day out trauma that you see, that you're exposed to, that really takes a toll. Number 2, PTSD, I don't have a problem with the diagnosis. I have a problem with the term disorder. I prefer to think of it as post-traumatic stress injury.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I haven't chose to get hung up on is the fancy acronyms that law enforcement and first responders love. They love to. I don't care how you describe it. I really don't. I think the most accurate thing that I just heard you say is it's those little things that add up, the compound trauma that we're not dealing with, the infant deaths that nobody, there's no big peer support thing, call out, hey, it's a detective call out, but that, and then, just the pressure of trying to save a life, you're there and you're doing CPR on somebody. And I did CPR on several subjects and they passed away. And
they almost always do with CPR, and that's a misnomer a lot of people have from Hollywood, that it always saves lives. It doesn't.
Exactly. Well, I didn't know that. So here I'm a young rookie cop doing CPR, and I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong here? How come I couldn't save this person? The family members standing around me, praying and screaming and crying. And then you come home, and then your spouse or your kids, how was your day at work? And you don't want to relive that, and you just say, fine. Right. Well, what you've just done is you've just sprinkled fertilizer on that little seed of PTSD. Now, how many times do law enforcement, firefighters, custody officers see traumatic injuries, and things, bad things, horrible, evil things happen on a regular daily basis, on a routine? Well, those things start adding up, just like you said. And then the big call comes out, and then you act the same way. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't need to open up and talk about it. And that, to me, is what starts adding in. I think it's all of the ingredients combined. Oh, and then let's not forget night shift, and
the trauma. Okay. Well, let's just say, I don't want to say trauma. Let's say stress of changing shifts, of going to court.
100%.
And by the way, let's throw in the department, the pressure from the department and the agency. That a lot of times is worse than the battles you face on the street.
100%. It's, when I got into my shooting, there was a half gallon of whiskey put on my personal vehicle with a note, glad you're okay, hurry up and get back to work.
Yeah. That's how we dealt with it. Look, Jeremy, I would love to say that was all wrong. The way we dealt with stuff was, number one, we had a saying, and it was different in Baltimore. There's different lingo, but they say, you're Baltimore police. Suck it up. You can lick your wounds later. You got a job to do.
That's right.
And that's what we did. And on really bad days, we'd get together and we'd drink a case or two of beer and a bunch of us in a parking lot and we'd talk. And there was some, that wasn't all bad until guys like me, that alcohol turned on you.
Mm-hmm. Amen. That's exactly it. Well, if that's your coping mechanism, alcohol is basically a drug. You're just numbing that pain, and it's a temporary fix. It's like taking an Advil for, a persistent headache that you have 365 days out of the year, right?
And not dealing with the cause of the headache.
Yeah, you're not treating the roots. You're just treating the branches. And, that's what I see going on still to this day. There's a lot of old mentality going on. That's the way I was raised. My last chief said it gave me probably the biggest compliment ever. Woody, you were definitely a cop's cop. That's for sure. And I was through and through.
Well, we're going to talk about some terms that, first of all, let's talk about Jeremy's career. Think that was a sleepy little town. It's not. I'm telling you, it's not. And we'll talk about the two major incidents that he was involved in that had a profound impact on him. We'll go into what that impact was. We'll talk about how he dealt with it. We'll talk about, most importantly, how he recovered and what he does about it today. This is a Law Enforcement Talk Radio show. And be sure to check out Jeremy Wood's website, brothersinhealing.com. That's brothersinhealing.com. And their 501c3 nonprofit called Bigger Than Us, where they speak and train others all over the U.S. about PTSD, what it looks like, what works, and how to combat it. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Newsbreak is your #1 local news app for current events, free live news for you and your community. Download the Newsbreak app today for free and be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app.
Imagine contacting millions of people every month using Facebook from the comfort of your home or business. How much would you increase the success of your business or service if you could do that? I do that every day, and so can you. Plus, earn a separate revenue from Meta. Learn how to work smarter and not harder on Facebook. Get step-by-step instructions on what to do and what not to do. Start with a free membership. Get details at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
We're returning our conversation with Jeremy Wood on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Jeremy was and is retired from the Marysville, Washington Police Department. His entire law enforcement career was in Marysville, Washington Police Department. And he is one of the co-founders of brothersinhealing.com. And they have a 501c3 nonprofit called Bigger Than Us, where he and his partners speak and train others all over the U.S. about PTSD, what it looks like, what works, and how to combat it. We said earlier in the conversation, Jeremy, that you're retired on a PTSD pension. And to be totally honest with you, I want to give kudos to the state of Washington, because that's not something a lot of states in the United States do.
Correct. No, they definitely, I'll give them credit there too. Yep, absolutely the right thing to do.
And and by the way, I say this all the time. During election season, we see these commercials about these big evil corporations and what they do. The biggest offenders for not taking care of their people are the cities, counties, towns, states, and federal government, especially when it comes to the law enforcement people. And that's just a point of contention I have. And they rail against corporations. A big corporation would be out of business if they didn't take care of their people. End of story. So your career, you have a full career in the Marysville Police Department. You had two major incidents that occurred that I don't want to minimize it, Jeremy, but they were the straws that broke the camel's back. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's talk about the shooting, the hostage situation shooting, and that was kind of back when there was that trend of suicide by cop going on,
mm-hmm.
and that's really what it was. So, we had just started our SWAT team, tactical team, put it together, and I was on a day shift. I was a school resource officer at the time, thinking that I was going to just go into the school. I was dressed for that kind of climate, indoors kind of thing. And all of a sudden I log onto my computer and I see that there's a bunch of calls holding. My first initial response was, okay, night shift. What the hell do you guys do all day? Let's clear some of these calls. And then I look and it said, all TAC team members respond to this and, that's where basically we're all going to meet up and then disperse from there. I get there. Basically, they said, hey, well, listen, what do you want to be the long gun guy on our team? Why don't you take your AR? That was the basic AR, no bipod, no scope, 15-round clip magazine, just the bare bones AR. But go deploy and get eyes on this window. And so I did. I took refuge underneath this carport, and I laid there for a couple hours, and then they had me get out from there and deliver a throw phone to this particular place because they're trying to establish communication. Not knowing the shield that we took up to the front door wouldn't have stopped the rounds. The hostage ended up escaping, and she runs 10 feet from where I'm laying underneath this SUV, and she starts saying what his mentality is. He's been on drugs and alcohol, and he wants to do a murder-suicide with me. And he passed out for a second, and he also said that he's going to force the cops to shoot him. And I remember one of the officers said, well, what kind of weapon does he have? And she said it's a scoped SKS rifle with a banana clip is what she said.
And I'm not a ballistics expert, but that's a no-joke piece of weaponry.
It would have gone through our shield that we had. We didn't carry the right shield because we didn't have the intelligence of what he was had. So we took the lighter shield, big mistake, and then also the body armor that I had. It would have gone through it like butter. So I recognized that right away, and also I'm worried about the skip rounds because I'm laying underneath this concrete carport, and so I move into this apartment across the street and open up the window. And long story short, he came out 3 times with the rifle underneath his chin. And each time he came out, the first 2 times, he was scouting out our positions where we were at. Second time he came out, he wheeled around and looked right up at me at the window that I was at, and I kind of knew he knew exactly where I was. When he came out the third time, he was shooting. He got 2 rounds off. I fired twice, struck him both times, and that is where things really went awry for me. My brain wouldn't allow me at the time to see kind of what my rounds did. I was carrying the tap rounds and nasty little buggers.
And by the way, I want to interrupt right now because a lot of people, and I was one of them, and one of the shootings I was involved in, I couldn't even tell if I hit the guy. I didn't know if it worked. Is that the case with you? You're like, all of a sudden he's down. I don't know why.
No, I knew because I grew up hunting and fishing, and I knew my first round was to the body, my second round was to the head.
Okay.
And I knew my my skill level, and I saw his body react to it. Well, I knew it because I stared down the barrel of his gun. When he turned, he whipped around when I went to hit him the second time, and when my second round hit him, that caused his body to fall backwards. His head went up, and so did the rifle. And when he fired off that round at me, it kind of went over.
So you had no doubt that it worked, and I'm getting to a point, and the point is, I can't speak for you. I can only speak for me. I never intended to shoot anybody on the job, and thankfully everybody survived. I never, ever planned and set out to do that. However, I do remember being in a shooting situation where and I was like, this guy's trying to kill me. This is the last one. This guy's trying to kill me. And I was prepared at that time. I said, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to die, but it's not going to be tonight, and it won't be because of you. And I'll do whatever it takes to survive. Well,
exactly. I have that same mentality. If I go, you're coming with me kind of thing, right?
I'm right there with you. I understand that totally. A lot of people don't. They don't understand that mindset. How do you go from being one moment, it's a slight exaggeration, but one moment you're getting ready for your shift at school to the next moment, a couple hours later, you're shooting someone and killing them. How do you prepare yourself for that?
You can't. There is no segue. This isn't Hollywood. As much as I had people say, well, why do you feel guilty about that? What? Because I had to take a life. I don't ever want to have to take a life, right?
It doesn't have to make sense to me.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. And, even though he was at his worst moment at that moment in time, I have enough knowledge and compassion that, hey, 5 years from now, if he would have just stayed on this earth, he could have been a completely different individual.
Right.
I've seen people change their lives around, and I think about that, and that's where it's not a bunch of guilt and shame. It's more of just sadness. I just wish, because over and over again, we just said, hey, just put the rifle down, come out and talk to us. We can get you help. Hours and hours of negotiating went on behind the scenes, that I didn't touch on prior. But
that's the other thing that a lot of people nowadays, especially, this is a term that is really caught popularity, is de-escalation. As if we were taught that in the 1980s. And we practice that daily on the job.
100%.
But what they do is the news articles, they always end with what the cop did. They never talk about the 20 different poor decisions the guy made before. And de-escalation is a tactic that works if both people want to do it. If the police and the bad guy, if the bad guy doesn't want to do it, the police really have no choice.
Correct. 100%. And this situation, his building, the residence he was at was right across from a school. They're in complete lockdown. All the kids are together in the gymnasium. All the doors are locked.
That's another bad factor. We're talking with Jeremy Wood. He's retired from the Marysville, Washington Police Department. Retired for PTSD, and we talk about one of the major incidents during his career. We'll talk about another when we return. He's one of the co-founders of BrothersInHealing.com. There's a website, and they have a nonprofit called Bigger Than Us, where they speak and train all over the U.S. about PTSD, what it looks like, what works, and how to combat it. If you want to be a guest on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, simply contact us. It couldn't be easier. You can send us a message on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show page, or email jay@letradio.com. That's JAY@letradio.com. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
What could you do with an extra $500 to $5,000 a month or more? All earned from the comfort of your home or business, and all with Facebook. Meta is paying people just like you every month. They are earning tens of thousands of dollars, and so can you. Learn how to create another revenue stream from Meta and dramatically increase your reach, all without breaking your own time bank. Sign up for a free membership at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Here's your chance to get into the ground floor, to make a donation to make the movie Gun Runner based off of the true story of now retired police detective Maria Oliveira, who shot 6 times while investigating a crime, died 3 times, brought back to life, has been in a hospital for a month, rushed back to work, only to suffer a near-fatal heart attack, and then several months later, a near-fatal stroke. It talks about his recovery, his life after, and more. That's at gunrunnerfilm.com. Again, you can make a donation at a gunrunnerfilm.com. Return conversation with Jeremy Wood on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Jeremy is retired from the Marysville, Washington Police Department. Retired for PTSD. He's one of the co-founders of Brothers in Healing. Their website is brothersinhealing.com. They have a 501c3 nonprofit called Bigger Than Us. They speak and train others all over the U.S. about PTSD, what it looks like, what works, and how to combat it. We could have a conversation about that all day long. One thing I don't do anymore, Jeremy, is I don't compare. I don't compete. Mine was debilitating enough, long enough, where I found what works for me. And it continues. Yeah. And if that doesn't work for me, I'll start doing something different. But right now, I'm at the point now where, and it's been many, many years, Jeremy, where I don't want to upset the apple cart. This is working. I'm afraid, almost afraid to make changes, because what if I try EMDR and all of a sudden it's bad again? That's where I'm at. So you had another major incident during your police career that, man, I've had nightmares about. And I haven't had one recently, but you got into a fight, and I say that loosely, and we could talk about fights. We get in a fight with a suspect that wound up with them dying, didn't they?
Yeah, in fact, so I just finished the shooting. I'm back to work 4 months, later, and then I switch over to night shift, and we're having a shift briefing at 3 a.m. at a coffee place that's inside of a grocery store, right? And they're open 24 hours. And all of a sudden, tones go off, and our dispatch says, "Hey, listen, 2 deputies need help." And they give the location, and they're like a mile down the road from where we're having our shift briefing at, right? So I switch over to county air, and it's the first time in my career and only time that I've heard grown men screaming into the radio for help. And I run code there. I get there. As I open the door, the room is filled with pepper spray. There's a mom. Her face is beaten up. She's standing in the kitchen in her nightgown. It's an apartment, lower level apartment. The 2 deputies, one of them has a radio cord wrapped around his neck from the suspect. Both of their batons are laying in opposite sides of the room. And I look at the suspect. He's dressed in women's teal underwear and a bra. His nails are painted. He's got black hair down to his shoulders. He's completely bloody all over his face. And he is just running game on the deputies. I mean, it's a knockdown, drag-out fight. They're so exhausted, the deputies. They literally have nothing left. I watched one of the deputies try to punch the guy, and it was just like this. The weakest punch. He had nothing left, but the deputies didn't want to give up. Well, I started engaging the suspect, and it was a knockdown, drag-out fight. My eyes are going shut from the pepper spray. I'm starting to throw up from the lactic acid from the fight. I'm giving him everything that I have, and I want to share something with you. Is prior to this, I'd gotten into jiu-jitsu and done some ground fighting that really paid off for me. However, everything except for my isn't working.
Right.
He's slippery. He's sweaty. He's bloody.
That tells a cop that you're dealing with a mental case and or someone who's drugged, or a combination of both.
Correct.
And the only thing that would have worked at that time, and they've since outlawed it most of the country, and I don't know when it's occurred, is choking people out. That's
correct. So I couldn't do the choke code. I was at that time I wasn't certified in it. I did get certified in it, but at that time I couldn't. And I got to a position where I could have sunk it in, and the fight could have been over. Everybody would have been fine. There'd have been no injuries. He would be alive today. That wasn't the case. Instead, he's snarling. He's growling. He kicked me in my groin. I returned the favor with my boots. He was on his back at the time. I did the biggest groin stomp you can imagine, and he looked me right in the eye and he growled like he was demon possessed. And I was at the point where, what in the world is it going to take? And the fight continued. He ended up grabbing my gun. I had a thigh holster at the time. I switched from a hip to a thigh one because I was on SWAT. I hadn't grappled with it, level 2 retention, and I could feel that thing getting looser and looser and coming out, and he's jerking on it. My eyes are going shut. I can't breathe because the pepper spray. And I just remember what they taught us in the academy. If a suspect gets your duty weapon out from its holster, there's an 85% chance you will die.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, I thought I was going to die. I kept fighting with them, and I said, listen, I got to breathe. I can't stay in this. I can't even see. I'm holding one eye open while I'm fighting, and I blacked out for a lot of the fight, but I do remember having the forethought, let's get him, just drag him outside. So I did a hair hold, trying to pull him outside, and as I got him outside, another officer helped me. We got his arms around his back, and that was when I felt him take his last breath, and I felt that ending of energy that I'll never forget. I could feel his spirit, his soul, his energy, whatever you want to call it, leave his body. And I remember looking back at his mom, and she was just, mouth was wide open, and I felt a lot of sadness for her.
And to be honest with you, Jeremy, I feel sad for you. And I still feel sad for the mom, but also the other deputies that are involved. And in my entire career, there's one 100%. There's one thing to go after people that you know that they're armed, they just shot someone. I kind of like that. I must have. I did it so often. But there was one guy in our entire district in Northwest District of Baltimore, and I'll give you an idea how big he was. He got cut from the Baltimore Colts, the then Baltimore Colts, for tackling everybody. And the first time I met him, when he's on his medicine, wasn't drinking, he's the nicest guy in the world. First time I met him, he was pulling a motor out of a car with his bare hands. And he's a great guy. And he actually, in the wintertime, we had a call for him rocking the MTA bus in his underwear in the freezing cold. And he put people in the hospital. I mean, The fights were beyond what we see on television. And that's another big thing that I had is like, this isn't like John Wayne. This isn't like Clint Eastwood. This is like I deliver 2 shots and it's over. No, it's knock down, drag out, and if you don't win, you're going to die. That's
right. 100%. Well, you can understand where I was at then. And I had another rookie officer come up to me and say, you know, Woody, I just learned a very valuable lesson. All those little wristy twisties that they taught us in the academy, they don't work for a combative subject. And apparently the fight was so hard that apparently I knocked both his dentures. He had meth mouth, and I knocked both his dentures out of his mouth, and they were laying 10 or 13 feet from where he took his last breath. I have no recollection of that. That was told to me by another officer, but all I know is I couldn't open my hands afterwards, and you know they were bruised and sprained and the whole 9 yards. And I didn't know how he was able to fight through the pain and everything. I didn't know he had ingested cocaine, meth, and heroin all at once.
That's a bad combination. Back in the day, we had to deal with PCP and cocaine and crack. And man, with the cocaine, if they had enough in them, as an anesthetic, you couldn't do anything to them.
Exactly.
And they took away the number one tool we had, which, by the way, we had a standing joke that we were issued mace, a nightstick, which we all replaced with a big table leg. And that thing they got rid of, but they're bringing it back. And it kept a lot of people at a distance. You'd spin it and all that stuff, but they issued mace. And we always had a standing joke that only worked on police and innocent bystanders. And we say, whatever you do, don't spray that stuff.
100%. I was in the same boat.
It's the worst thing in the world.
It really is, because it affects you. The secondary, exactly. In fact, when another officer would pull their pepper spray or mace, I would say, nope, I'll go hands on.
Oh, we'd scream, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't spray that stuff.
Exactly. And so I found that out, and then through EMDR, how I got over that.
Let's do this. Let's talk about that when we return. We're talking with Jeremy Wood. He's retired Marysville, Washington police officer, retired on PTSD. He's one of the co-founders of Brothers in Healing. Their website's brothersinhealing.com. And they have a 501c3 nonprofit called Bigger Than Us, where they speak and train others all over the U.S. about PTSD, what it looks like, what works, and how to combat it. When we return, we're going to talk about the effects of his police career on him, his mental health, and most importantly, what he did about it to get the life he has today. You can find us on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. One of your top destinations on the internet should be letradioshow.com. That's our website. You'll find every episode of the show as a free podcast. They're all converted to a podcast after airing on radio. You'll also find great blog articles, op-ed articles, and much more, all at letradioshow.com. That's letradioshow.com. Don't forget, it's all free at letradioshow.com.
Imagine earning an extra $500 to $5,000 a month or more from the comfort of your home or business, all with Facebook. That's right. Meta is paying people just like you every month. Learn how to create another revenue stream from Meta and dramatically increase your reach, all without breaking your own time bank. Sign up for a free membership at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Return conversation with Jeremy Wood on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Jeremy is retired Marysville, Washington police officer. Retired with PTSD. He is one of the co-founders of brothersinhealing.com. And their nonprofit is called Bigger Than Us. So they speak and train others all over the U.S. about PTSD, what it looks like, what works, and most importantly, how to combat it. I would love to say how to prevent it. I don't think that's possible.
No.
One of the things I always say jokingly, Jeremy, is that if you do policing for long enough in the United States, you're going to get affected one way or the other. It's a degree of how much.
100%. You're spot on. No argument with that. Yeah.
And usually
there's no way around it.
And usually for me, and for a lot of folks I've had on the show, when they realize there's a problem, it's too late. It's full-fledged. It's ongoing. Is that how it happened with you?
Bingo. You nailed it. The bullseye. Yeah, 100%. Well, I just had the mentality. So, one of the big father figures in my life was a World War II vet. And same with my dad. What are you crying about? I'll give you something to cry about, right?
Right.
Okay, so you suck it up. You signed up for this. This is what my brain told me. You signed up for it. Your grandfather fought in World War II and was stationed in North Africa, lived through the Depression. What are you dealing with? Nothing compared to what he went through. So suck it up, get back out there. That was the mentality I had. I didn't believe in psychology. I didn't believe in, I thought it was all psychobabble. And, I was one of the ones that actually made fun of the people that had to go see a psychologist.
Don't even talk to me about prayer meditation, because I'm not game for that. And I'm the biggest advocate of that.
Well, I'm going to share something with you that I don't know if there's any chaplains listening to this, but sometimes when Chris and I finish our talk about PTSD, I've had it where I've had 12 chaplains stand around Chris and I and ask to pray for us. Absolutely.
Yeah,
send one upstairs for you, right?
Yeah.
100%. Love it. However, I did have a lead chaplain say, you know what, Woody, all you need is Jesus. And I said, well, I have Jesus. I was raised in a religious family, non-denominational Christian. Why would I want to stay here on this earth when I could just take my life and go up to heaven, streets paved with gold? So don't feel like that's the only answer.
One of the biggest problems I had was, Chris, and Jeremy, I'm sure you can relate to this, is I didn't want people preaching to me. And secondly, I didn't want to seek help from people that had no experience and they learned something in a book.
You nailed it. That is exactly why we started our foundation and we do the training that we do. And if you go to our website, you'll read the testimonials from other officers and veterans. And they say this is the best training, no thing that we've ever been to. This was outstanding because of that reason. That's why we started. We got tired of that same mentality of listening to psychologists and people who sat behind a desk and had no clue what it was like to put their life on the line.
Right.
And that's why our foundation is so powerful, and that's why we've been able to have the success that we've had and help so many people. We're just under 200 now, and we started 4.5 years ago.
Well, obviously you went from where you're at today to when you're really suffering. How bad was it when it was at its worst?
Okay, so it was at its worst when I would pray. You talk about the religious aspect. I said some people, some pastors and preachers would say, well, if you take your own life, then you don't get to go to heaven, right? And so I would just pray, okay, God, just take me while I sleep. I couldn't even get out of bed half the time. I went from that to now I'm going around, traveling, being around crowds, sharing my testimony and helping other people. And just a complete turnaround, night and day. I now can't wait to wake up. I'm like, this gift of life that I've been given is completely different. I wake up so excited. I can't wait to get out of bed.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
It's amazing.
Yeah. It is amazing, and now I love people again. Where I started really connecting with dogs in particular because they're so loyal and they're always excited to see you. And,
I hate
you know
to break
it
to you, I get along better with my dog than I do with people. I'm still working on the people thing.
Amen. You and me both. It's a lifelong journey for me, right? Because we have seen the evil and what people are capable of, right? And
well, I had to accept the fact that. Again, this goes, and I don't want to sound preachy. This is not the case for you. This is for me. It no longer mattered what caused me to be this way. I had to deal with it. And I'm the one who's responsible for my recovery. I'm the one who's responsible. You cannot do for me, which I will not do for myself.
That's right.
And my dog, my Rottweiler, who's phenomenal, and keeps me centered and stays right next to me and does all that stuff. I sleep better at night knowing he's there. He's got my back. He's got my wife's back. All these other things he does by instinct. The people thing, I'm better. Here's one thing I wanted to say that someone asked me the other day. What are you grateful for? They asked this on Facebook. And by the way, just check out Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And I posted a photo of retired Baltimore police patch. I said, I'm grateful I survived. And barely, but I'm here and I'm living well. And sometimes that's the best I have.
100%. No, I'm grateful for the simple things. You know, it's funny because when you have near-death experiences, you realize that, well, at least for me, it was the simple things, the leaves changing with the seasons, that cool, crisp air that you feel on your skin, you know, because you're still alive and you get to experience that, right? And then, you know, that connection with another brother or sister like yourself from law enforcement where you don't feel crazy anymore because you found somebody that can relate to those emotions and thoughts and feelings that you went through. I mean, it's just like, but see, that's what PTSD does. It takes its roots in you, and it's like a bonsai tree. You know, the roots are just growing behind the scenes underneath the soil, and then all of a sudden you go out there.
For me, it told me I was a freak and that my family was better off. Listen, I barely made it through my 30s, and if I didn't find a way to get better, if I didn't find a way, A, to get sober, and B, to deal with my PTSD, both. If I didn't deal with my PTSD, I wouldn't stay sober. If I didn't stay sober, I wouldn't be effective on PTSD. That's for me. But if I didn't find a way to do those things, I probably would have made it to 35. Now, I'm 31 years older than that.
Right.
And that's a blessing.
100%. It's a gift. You know, you got a gift, and luckily for you, you had that mindset. You know, it's no wonder. It is really no wonder to me. It's no surprise to me that the number one way we're losing our first responders and military is through suicide.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why, you know, and we better start doing something about it. And Chris and I, that's why we started our foundation, is we can either about it or we can do something about it. And we chose just two guys that had no knowledge how to start a nonprofit. We just said, hey, let's put on training that law enforcement and military vets would love to listen to and hear with real raw and relevant stuff. Let's create a foundation so we can sponsor and help others that may be feeling like us, like they were alone, to get help. And so Chris and I sponsor those that want to seek treatment for PTSD at an inpatient treatment facility place where we both graduated from.
Awesome. And do you get details about their brothersinhealing.com?
Yeah, everything that is about us is right there on our website, brothersinhealing.com, including the treatment facility place that we went to. If you scroll down, you'll see resources that we have available, that kind of thing. And really, it was about rewiring your brain and thinking about things from a different level, and start talking about those feelings that we suppressed.
And you can tell the people at that facility that there's still certain things I do that so-called psychologists don't like. I avoid certain things. I rewire my brain where I don't consume certain content. I don't watch certain people send me dash cam videos, body cam videos all the time of police being hurt. I'm like, what's your opinion on this? I don't even watch that stuff because I don't like what happens to me. And what happens to me is it takes me hours, sometimes days, to get back to what I call my center.
100%. 100%. In fact, I don't think you'll find a psychologist that will tell you, hey, if you're traumatized and you're dealing with PTSD, look at more social media, look at more news, right? No. In fact, they say just the opposite because it's garbage.
Yeah,
it's really
garbage in,
right?
garbage out. I want to ask you this. We're almost out of time. What would be the one secret or one thing that you do every day that you think really contributes to your recovery?
Self-awareness. that is the key. Okay. What am I feeling and where am I feeling it? So if I wake up and I feel a little anxious or irritable, okay, why? Then I take a moment and I say, why am I feeling this way? Oh yeah, it's the anniversary of this, or it's around this major call. Okay. If you can have that self-awareness, for me, signs. I had no clue that when I drove past a sign that said food next right, that I'd be triggered. I was triggered because that's where the shooting kicked off at. That's where we met. I had no clue, but through self-awareness now, commercial came on. Ooh, I'm a little triggered and flooded. How do you want to be?
I get it, 100%. Jeremy, thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Thank you for your service, and really thank you for talking about a subject where a lot of people don't want to talk about. The website is brothersinthehealing.com. Again, Jeremy, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
This was a podcast version of the nationally syndicated Law Enforcement Talk radio show, and we are so glad that you decided to join us. Big thanks to our guests for telling their story on the show. 2 simple things you can do. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com. That's letradio.com. And be sure to follow us or like us on Facebook. Do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure when you see a post that we put up that you like, that you resonate with, that gets your attention, be sure to share it with your friends. We'll be back in just a few days with another great episode of the show. See you then.